You definitely don't need an engine to sail around the world. We made the decision early on to have a reliable, bulletproof engine because we believe it opens up doors to experiences that we couldn't have otherwise. It can be hard spending time and money on boat improvements for which we don't experience a direct benefit.
God damn it.
But someday those improvements may just save our lives.
Previously on Project Atticus.
After spending 3 years refitting our fixer-upper sailboat, we left the United States with only $2,000 and the goal of working while we cruised. We made it as far as Isla Mujeres, Mexico, before we ran out of money and had to find work. For the next year, we did freelance boat repair jobs until we saved up enough cash to cast the lines and sail south to explore the Western Caribbean.
Recently, we made it to Bocas del Toro, Panama, where we will be tackling some boat projects to prepare Atticus for our biggest challenge yet, crossing the Pacific Ocean. Good morning. Well, welcome to a wet and rainy Bocas del Toro, Panama. The whole point of these boat projects that we're doing to prepare for the Pacific crossing, our main objective is to make it so that Atticus can keep moving no matter what. And I think that's really important when cruising in an area like the South Pacific, where we could be extremely remote and really, really far from civilization. So the next step down on our priority list is to make sure that the engine is bulletproof. So the main thing that could go wrong with the engine that would keep us from being mobile is fuel issues. And what can happen is you go out on a passage, the seas get really rough, and so you're bouncing all around, getting kind of extreme motion, and so that really churns up the fuel tank, and that gets all that gunk that's kind of settled on the bottom and in the corners to churn up and get loose into the fuel. After a couple days at sea, making landfall and approaching like a reef pass to get into an anchorage, turning on that engine for the first time in a couple days, and then all of a sudden the fuel filter gets completely inundated by this gunk, clogs up, and your engine dies. And so here you are in the middle of a reef pass, and you've got no engine, and now things are really serious. So the way that we're going to prevent fuel related clogging is we're going to create a parallel fuel filter system that we can switch to if our primary fuel filter clogs up. The other issue that we've had is the fuel tank on Atticus is actually situated athwartship, but the pickup is all the way on the starboard side of that tank. So that means that if we heel to port, all that fuel is on the port side of the tank below the level of the pickup tube. So the other thing that we want to do is to install a second pickup on the port side of the tank that we can switch to, so we can switch from starboard to port depending on what tack we're going to be on. So here is the second fuel pickup that we're going to be installing today. I'm going to be drilling a 2-inch hole using this hole saw. And I am so freaking nervous because I hate drilling big holes into my boat, period. But drilling a big hole into my fuel tank feels even worse. I think that went pretty well. I took my time with it. I was super freaked out. So the actual base plate for the pickups came with this rubber gasket, but I want to also seal the heads of the bolts that go through both the base plate and this gasket. And so to do that, I'm gonna actually make little gasket washers out of this gasket material. Having a roll of gasket material like this really comes in handy. I've had scenarios where I've had to dismantle a part of our outboard, for instance, and I didn't have a replacement gasket for that spot, so I'm able to cut any kind of rough gasket shape out of this material. So what I'm going to do now, first of all, this is the valve that I'm going to use to switch from the starboard pickup to the port pickup. But I've got a couple other valves here, and these are for the parallel fuel filter system that I want to install. First thing I'm going to do is use this scrap wood to kind of build a manifold so that I can have all of these valves accessible from inside the cockpit locker here. So let's go for it. Let's make this thing. Okay, so I've got a little work area here that the marina lets us use, and this is another thing that I really like about Bocas Marina here in Bocas del Toro, is that they're just kind of cruiser friendly. So they're not just here for, you know, people on a vacation. They're here for people that live on boats full time and have maintenance things going on. So there's a boat yard not far from here, as well as this little work area. So I didn't really do a lot of research into making sure that I got valves that could simply bolt onto some sort of a, you know, piece of wood or something. These have no bolt holes at all. That's why I have to make this somewhat complicated mounting system. A little bit unfortunate, but it shouldn't take me too much time. Okay, cool. So the dry fit for this manifold bracket is finished, and I'm happy with it. So next, I'm going to be disassembling this and adding the fittings onto each of the valves. And when I do that, I'm going to make sure I use this thread sealant. Alright, so this is the manifold dry fit in place, and I think it's going to work just fine. I'm going to just disassemble it, clean it up and sand it, and prep it for epoxy. To do that, I'm going to have to dive into our chemical locker to get our epoxy.
Nice and tidy.
Yeah, right? How you like that? We got rags, PB blaster, corrosion block, our electronics duster. So I'm gonna dig through there and see if we can't pull out our epoxy stuff. Okay, so there's our hardener. Okay. Cool, so I'm getting to take advantage of the massive fastener selection that we have now. Now I'm just grabbing the stuff that I'm gonna need to mount this new fuel manifold, as well as the Raycor filters. So I got what I need. Now it's time to head down into the hole, which I am not looking forward to. Man, it is tight in here. Trying to hold everything together, drilling, screwing, is one of those ridiculous challenges that I think is kind of unique to working on boats. Okay, so the manifold is installed. So the next and final step is to just run the hose to every single fitting. So I'm gonna just follow my schematics that I came up with, and hopefully it all works out. This isn't working. Hey bud, can you give me a hand trying to prime this real quick? I can't get the system to prime. Like I can kind of feel the fuel kind of sloshing up and down, but it's not flowing all the way through. I actually installed a second priming hand pump bulb in this line here. So we need to both kind of pump simultaneously. And the trick is going to be, like, once we start, just don't stop until it's totally primed.
Okay.
Okay, go. Okay, keep going. I think it's working. There we go. Come on, baby. Come on. Keep going. Woo! I think we did it. Nice one, buddy. I think because the lines are like a lot longer than they were before. It just needed a little bit more suction than one bulb was able to create. Now we're gonna start the engine, and we're just gonna switch through all the different modes to make sure this thing is 100%. So, moment of truth. So far so good. It ran a little rough there for a second, but I'm not surprised. I'm gonna call that good. So next I'll swap from the starboard pickup over to the port pickup. I guess it worked. Last thing, I'm gonna switch from Racor number 1 to Racor number 2. Yeah, baby. Think that means that we're good to go. Yeah, I mean, it's all working. Sailing around the world is all about risk management. You can never completely eliminate risk, but you also can't ignore it. Every improvement that we make to Atticus reduces our risk by a marginal amount, and that risk reduction can come at a high price, both financially and emotionally. So the trick is to decide the maximum amount of risk we're willing to accept, put the work in, and then get back out there to what we love most.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed hanging out with us and watching Jordan get our fuel system bulletproof. We wanted to thank a couple of our brand new deckhand level patrons. So we've got Guy Jones, Sean Cooper, Mark Springer, Paul Wellner. We've also got Jerry Lowenstein. Jordan kind of thought my arm was longer than it.
Yeah, sorry about that, Jerry.
We've also got Leslie and Claire Newman, Doug Marcello, Alan Sikowski, Anthony Poitz, Rusty Burris, and Will Spence.
We also have Joel Schechter and Tony and Lydia Beer, Brian and Michelle Pollard and Rob and Jen Eilers, Fred Perdue, Mark Cosins and SV September, Rich and Mira Rocky and Julian Marquez, and finally we've got Thomas Tiller and James King. So thank you guys so much. Without you, we would not be able to put so much time, effort, and love into these videos. And besides that, we will catch you guys next Thursday.